Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's event, Key Insights and Lessons Learned from the Ministry of Transportation's PMIS Digital Transformation Journey. I am delighted to be with you. I'm Dr. Craig Ogeron, Senior Fellow for the Center for Digital Government and Professor of MIS at Millsaps College. I'm very excited to serve today as the moderator for the event. And I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. I know we're going to be in for a fabulous session over the next 60 minutes. I have the very, very distinct pleasure of making several introductions. So joining me today to discuss this wonderful topic are Steve Reese, the Associate Director, Capital Projects and Infrastructure Technology, KPMG Canada, Arthur Terechuk, Partner, Capital Advisory and Transformation, Superset Infrastructure, and Nick Johnson, the Chief Evangelist at Kahua. Gentlemen, it is a distinct pleasure to be with you today. Can you each, starting with Steve, just take a minute and tell us about yourselves and your respective companies?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the introduction. Like you said, I'm Steve Reese. I'm a Associate Director in KPMG's Management Consulting and Transformation Delivery Services Group out of the Vancouver office in Canada. I work across industry and market verticals on PMIS-focused technology transformations, and my experience is everything from hands and keyboard implementation to advising in large PMIS transformations and leading those efforts at our various clients across Canada and North America. I'm also our PMIS Alliance leader, focusing on building and maintaining solution and vendor partnerships across Canada. I've been, like I said, I've been focused on this area for the better part of the last 12 years. Currently, I recently and still kind of am leading the PMIS implementation now in its operations and sustainment phase at the Ontario Ministry of Transportation.
All right, thank you, Steve. Arthur?
Hello, everyone. My name is Arthur Terechuk. I'm a founding partner in Superset Infrastructure. My experience goes back to probably between 15 plus years, almost going on 20, specifically in the capital project PMIS space. And throughout my career, I've had a great fortune and pleasure working with some of the largest ministries of transportation and capital infrastructure agencies that specifically focused on the transportation, both in rail and road, for almost all of my career. So different platforms, different types of projects, and a very diverse set of stakeholders. And at Superset Infrastructure, I lead the capital project and transformation team. We work very closely with KPMG Canada, and we've worked with them serving the Ontario Ministry of Transportation in implementing systems that are specifically tailored for large capital project infrastructure clients. Pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. Nick?
Nicholas Johnson. I'm the Chief Evangelist at Kahua. Kahua is the industry's only full-featured construction project management information system built on a low-code platform as a service. Personally, I have spent a couple and a half, just a little over 2 decades in design and construction before spending a couple decades in the technology space serving the design and construction industry. So again, glad to be here like the other guys. Very happy to be here with you today. Greg, thank you.
Gosh, thank you, all of you. So with our housekeeping done and some intros done, we are set to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is digital transformation. I think it will be helpful if we begin by defining some of the terms that we use in this conversation. I think whether it's the time I spend as a CIO or what I see in the classroom now, these terms can be a little bit squishy in the middle. So especially in light of the fact that can happen, let's kind of get at that part of it. So Steve, when we say digital transformation, what does that mean to you?
Well, I'll start that again.
That's okay.
Um,
You
so
had
that
us.
is
I was lip reading the whole time, Steve. You had us, but go ahead, my friend.
all right. So that's a great question in terms of digital transformation. As a leader in our digital transformation practice in KPMG, this is a term that's near and dear to my heart and a big focus of our professional lives. When we talk about digital transformation, we're typically talking about the complete and total transformation across three specific areas, typically people, process, and technology. At KPMG, we focus on all three. As a technology practice, it's a lot of the time we try to focus or too much on the technology and we forget the people in the process. That is something that we're constantly emphasizing here at KPMG, because at the end of the day, transformation begins with the people, carries on to the process, and then we have an enabling technology that connects everything together. So when we're talking about digital transformation, we're looking at these key aspects and we're helping our clients, transform the way they're doing their business to achieve the specific organizational or business needs. It definitely encompasses a lot of different aspects of how they operate, and it really takes a full team to achieve successful digital transformation. I think that's one of the key things that we look at, and one of the key things that our clients look at from us. Digital transformation is difficult. It's not something that our clients are accustomed to. It is something that we're accustomed to, though, and we have a wealth of experience in the area. And again, that whole team approach, it takes a lot of different skill sets, abilities, and people to pull off successfully.
Yeah, Steve, thank you. You mentioned the diversity of skill sets, and I think that's a fabulous point you make. I agree totally. I think many times teams aren't diverse enough when you tackle a transformation effort, and that can be a challenge. So another term that I've heard a lot, Arthur, this one is for you, this term digital twin. I know it gets thrown around a good bit. When you hear that, what is top of mind for you?
It's a virtual representation or that object or system with real-time data from others, which is, I would say, real estate of where an asset, and specifically in Theo's case, it would be a piece of maybe linear transportation infrastructure like a bridge, where you can have full traceability from its idea and conception through the design, through the construction phases, through the operation and maintenance, together, and being able to correlate it to RFIs were asked in procurement, what RFIs and changes happened during construction, and what out of these different events, modifications to both design and construction, both the techniques or how are they going to impact? So it's a big topic. It is not usually completed just with a single system, and it is really more of an ideal that we aim for. I think a lot of the technologies that are coming to the forefront now are us there, and PMIS connects to. I've explained this a couple of times. And focus on different aspects of systems, and just very briefly, if you're in general contracting, you're probably a lot more attracted to drawings. Mm-hmm. If you are in capital infrastructure, you're going to be very process driven. It's a public sector. There's a lot of processes, and there's a lot of contracts, and there's contractual paper getting moved around, and there's a lot of volume of it. So they're more focused on procedures. And if you're in energy or nuclear or oil and gas, you're going to be a lot more schedule driven. These are just natural aspects of how the market's broken down. I think if we talk about MTO, if we talk about linear infrastructure, then solutions like Kahua are really the go-to that becomes that foundation to where everything then gets linked to.
Awesome. Thank you. And Nick, kind of wrapping up this concept of getting these terms square, the third one that comes to mind is platform. And when you sort of hear that, you know, we've touched on transformation, we've touched on digital twin. When you hear platform, what do you think about?
Yeah, Craig, thank you. That's these are all good questions. That's one that is of particular interest to us at Kahua, because platform is a term we use in a very technical sense. So technically, a software platform is a structure or a technology that's cloud-based, that's built for developing apps. You build apps on top of a platform. Okay, we're sensitive about that because some software vendors will advertise or market that they have a platform for applications. And really what they do is have a collection of disparate tool sets that they've acquired under one roof. They can put them on one invoice. That doesn't make them a platform. Think of it, Craig, this way is, I don't know if you have an iPhone or an Android, but those are platforms that those companies built, that Apple built and Google built, that anyone can write apps on. So I have an Android phone. It's a Google phone, has an Android operating system, and it has an application for LinkedIn. It has an application for Delta Airlines and Hilton Hotels. It has all kind of applications that Google knows nothing about. So they build a platform for others to add applications on. Kahua is built on a low-code platform as a service so that smart people outside of our company, like Arthur, can create applications specific to the knowledge that they have in the industry. We can't hire all the smart people. We can't know everything about every project type. We build a platform so other really smart people can add functionality to what we offer. I hope that makes sense.
It does, and I love that. I mean, you know, this is sort of the platform era that all of us are living and working in. So, all right. So with definitions out of the way, Nick, I'll stick with you. Tell us a little bit about the client.
The Ministry of Transportation in Ontario is a huge transportation entity. 16,500 kilometers of provincial highway. That's about 10,000 miles. 40,000 lanes of highways, that would be over 25,000 miles in U.S. terms. Over 3,000 bridges. Here's the numbers that I will tell you that kind of have the greatest impact. They spend over $3 billion annually on capital construction, maintenance, and operation. So it's just an incredibly large transportation department. If it were a U.S. state, it would be one of the very largest. So it's certainly the largest in Canada, very complex. Arthur and Steve and the team have set up systems to deal with over 3,000 vendors. So an incredibly complex transportation entity trying to be as efficient as possible.
Wow. I don't know that I've ever dealt with 3,000 vendors before in my life as a CIO. That's a lot of juggling. So Steve, let me ask you, so KPMG often promotes a concept to your clients that digital transformation should not begin with a requirements list, but rather this idea of beginning with an end in mind. As the author Stephen Covey would say, walk me through what's the process like when you envision this end state? That can't always be easy.
No, it's not easy, and part of the reason why we say throw away the requirements is because we want to reimagine what those requirements are. We want to develop the vision without clouding the sky, so to speak, focusing on the granular when we can and should be focusing on the end state. Right, setting an end goal for transformation is critical for these large organizations. And if you just focus on if you start from the bottoms up, you can sometimes cloud that end vision by factoring in a lot of unnecessary requirements or items that are nice to haves but not required for the transformation to be successful. So when we say that, we don't say, throw away the requirements, never look at them again. It's really set them aside, start with the end vision, and work top down at what we're trying to achieve with the business needs, with the timeline, with the budget, and with the organization's capacity for change and all these other aspects that might get overlooked if you're just strictly looking at requirements. So our approach to transformation really is starting with that end vision, and then circling back to all our key stakeholders and and leaders at the client to figure out what is the end goals of the transformation, how are we going to achieve it, and then look at the requirements at that point and filter those back in to make sure that they're supporting our end goal and our vision. That's typically what we mean by that. Mm-hmm. And in our experience, this does lead to better transformational success and more positive outcome for our client organizations.
Steve, I love the fact that you talked about looking at the ability for change to happen. Many times, we talk about change being hard, but I think really sort of looking at it somewhat analytically is really critical to success. Arthur, your firm, Superset, specializes in helping construction owners use tech to improve project outcomes. So, in that regard, what do you see as some of the more foundational components that can help an organization get to the place that we just heard Steve talk about? Are there certain must-haves that need to be in place first?
Well, so first and foremost, let's narrow it down to three. So from my experience, there's three major independent elements that have to be in place or recommended to be in place before you undertake any type of technology transformation. I'll just say what the list is, and then we'll talk a little bit about them in detail. So one of them is consider your organization's readiness to undertake that transformational change. That would be the highest one. Is it the right time for you? Does the number two, system integrator. Do you have the right people in the room that are going to take you to where you need to go? And the last one would be flexible and scalable platform or PMIS solution that you're selecting. So for item number one, when we talk about organizational readiness to undertake that transformation, that includes a clear articulation of what success looks like. Organizational process alignment, has that exercise been completed? Flexibility and agility to take advantage of the automation offered by the PMIS, and organizational change management components that would ensure that the changes implemented are actually explained, communicated, and supported through to all of the members of the organization. I would also maybe even put that as point 1.1 or 1.2. Another point is, I think what we're asking for is to have a clear articulation of what is the end result that you're looking for as a part of this transformation. There's got to be some net benefits, and those benefits have to be clear to everybody within the organization. For point number two, strong and competent system integrator. Certainly different types of organizations need different types of, they will have better suited partners. If we're talking about large public organizations, I think boutique firms isn't going to be our recommendation. And I know it's funny to hear because we're a boutique firm, people with a high degree of complexity. With all of the variables that are in, you'd want a firm like KPMG in place that is able to expand quickly, is able to pull in global resources and subject matter expertise and support you in all of the different areas. You'd want them to be there, to have reputation, to have existing history with you, to know that they're not going to go away. That is, that's your ideal. A smaller firm would obviously have limitations. They're done with you. They're going to move on to somebody else. You may have challenges reaching them again, and that's just not an option. And the team we work with could easily go between 10 to 20 people across almost 10 departments. So that's the element there. And when we talk lastly about flexible and scalable PMIS solutions, so there's a lot of various construction management solutions in the market. And I've talked about this briefly already, what commercial and residentials prefer in terms of being drawing focused. Public infrastructure is significantly more process driven and document driven. So meeting the requirements of the public sector requires you to factor in elements of capital planning, procurement, commercial transactions, audit compliance, regulatory requirements, accessibility requirements. And so security actually is becoming very, very relevant and on the front there as well. So these types of clients requiring a more extensive process customization. They have a lot more internal processes. They have a lot more variability in terms of the contracts that they issue that support different types of procurements, whether it's asset or services or maintenance. Mm. And there are differentiation specific between what type of linear infrastructure or where within geographically that they're located, the type of vendors that they work with. Recently, some of the other elements are like participation of Native American firms, and in the US, it would be equivalent to minority representation. All of these are factors you don't have to worry about, but if you're in the public sector, that becomes something that is not natively available in a lot of other tool sets, and flexibility within it, and ability to get the reporting that you need. So those are I'd say the main three. Readiness.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's a whole lot of information in 3 bullets, Arthur. I think that's pretty incredible. And anytime, having worked in public sector, I hear procurement, I always, kind of focus on that, because typically that's something you need to do well and right, especially when you know anything that is regarding technology. So Steve, real quickly, let me turn to you. Earlier, you described your philosophy for digital transformation. Can you kind of help walk me through your method for guiding organizations through the process?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one thing to talk about it, another thing to do it. I think that the main factor in something that we take very seriously is, we have a unique approach for each of our clients. Each of our clients are different. They have different challenges within their organization. They have probably facing different business challenges. Yeah, they might have a core technology problem they're trying to address, but everything else is very different. So we really strive on getting to understand and know our client. You can't help our client make progress in transformation without knowing them and how they operate, and their ins and outs and their strengths and weaknesses and so forth. So we really take the time to understand the challenges at hand and develop a unique approach, through direct communication, through a lot of collaboration and a lot of stakeholder engagement. So typically this isn't the first time we meet our clients. We have a long history with a lot of our clients, and we're their trusted partner for a reason. But even with that, this specific challenge is something that we want to make sure we have everything right from the beginning. It's never going to go right throughout the entire project, but starting off on a good foundation is one of those key aspects. So that being said, we're starting, boots on the ground on the client. We like to bring the whole team. So it's the whole, kitchen sink approach. We have our technical experts, we have our project management teams, we have our change management experts, our training leads. We want to bring everyone on to engage on the project very early, so we have a full understanding of what the client's needs are around the transformation, and we have a fully realistic and executable plan in place that will combine all these elements to deliver a successful transformation. We find that it's easy to overlook certain things. So if you bring everyone at once, you get everyone on the ground, you get everyone talking, you're much more likely to arrive at a successful conclusion. Now, I said we'd take our unique approach, but we also layer in our KPMG playbooks and handbooks around, PMO structure and all those, other more strategic documentation and so forth requirements. You can't get very far without these documented processes and a very defined plan to execute. Now, just to circle back, we talked about coming up with a realistic plan. And that's something that we find is always a bit of a, I'm not going to call it a day one problem, but it quickly becomes a day two problem. We go into these transformations with, a set of expectations. Typically, within organizations, we want to achieve X, Y, and Z by this date, right? And sometimes that's not based in, or it's artificially driven deadlines based on, whatever factors into those decisions, right? So coming up with that realistic plan after our initial analysis is key to set a baseline schedule and to drive the transformation from there. In terms of, where we go from that point, it's really getting down to the nitty-gritty details of what is required. Typically when we're talking about PMIS solutions, there's the various functional areas. A lot of it is cost driven, a lot of it is schedule driven, and a lot of it is very, very, contract driven, fine detail driven processes that need a lot of understanding. So first we look to the client, we pull together, we call them, we break out into different various functional groups to tackle the specific challenges. Typically early on in this process, you're going to do some kind of fit gap analysis to understand where their specific challenges are, and this is where we can rely on our national and global teams of industry experts in various areas, and we can make sure we have the right people to help the client through the transformation. So it's really about that whole team approach and making sure that we're understand the client and transformation problems and are in the best position possible to address, resolve, and overcome them. Because as I said earlier, there's always going to be challenges. I've never implemented a large-scale transformation without those challenges, and there's always those typical problem areas like change management, integration, migration, or even with business requirements and aligning them to a particular solution. One of the reasons why Kahua is great in this area is that it's so flexible. So some programs you go into and you're really tied down to solutions or platforms capabilities. So it's always having conversations with the client. Oh, you could do this, but the platform doesn't really allow it, right? With Kahua, there is that built-in flexibility. So it's more of this is what it does out of the box. This is how we can meet your requirements. And typically that meets about 80%. It's that last 20% that takes the iteration and the refinement and the configuration in the tool. And again, one of the reasons we like Kahua is because it has that ability, and we don't have to keep going back to the client saying we can't do this. It's can do this. This is achievable, and this is what it's going to look like in a very rapid and agile way. For these, so those are the three areas where it goes wrong. But we have strategies to deal with those as well.
Craig,
Yes,
can I add a comment here?
Please. Yeah, Nick, please.
It just strikes me. I've always been impressed with Steve's team and the KPMG team, and it's part of what's great about having an ecosystem the way that Kahua and Arthur's team and Steve's team, the way we're set up to be partners. Steve said two things that really made sense to me. You can't make a plan to go from A to B unless you know your client. Well, Kahua can't know all the clients in the world, but KPMG does have that kind of breadth. They are already serving this client. They have a relationship and know the client. And you can't plan to go to B unless you know where A is. You can't do gap analysis, to Steve's point, unless you know where the starting point is. And that's where a vendor like Kahua or any other software provider is not going to have that intimate knowledge of a client. So it's just fantastic that we can have partners like KPMG that do know not just the industry, but know the individual client themselves and can help us be part of that transformation, because you can't start a journey without knowing where you are.
Yeah, Nick, that, when you say that, I think about the word that pops into my head is context, the business context and knowledge, right? I mean, in the tech part, right? Albeit scalable, flexible, can get you so far, but that context and that knowledge and the relationship is critical. So Arthur, I've been thinking, you said earlier that the PMIS systems, there's a critical component there, right? And Kahua was selected to replace a system that had failed to meet the business objectives of MTO. Walk me through, what was it that was different with Kahua's solution, and why was that critical to the success of the project?
Did we lose Arthur?
Looks like it's a little bit frozen. I tell you what, let's keep the question because I think it's critical. So Nick or Steve, if Arthur comes back, so talk to me about this part of it, right? Talk to me about what was critical with Kahua's solution that made this get around the corner and across the goal line.
Yeah,
so not be completely prejudiced, I'm going to ask Steve to take this one.
Right.
Yeah, not a problem. So I would say one of the first and foremost, they did select a platform. I think it was 2016, and there were some challenges right off the gate. One, this was their first PMIS solution, so they were migrating from a complete paper-based process. So in this was something that they were very ingrained and they were very married to, as MTO is a very long and historic organization going back, I think, over 100 years, to sometime in the 1800s when they were first initiated. So they had these paper processes and all these forms that they were migrating into a digital system for the very first time, and having a vendor led implementation. What it led to was just a replication of those processes in the digital form. And unfortunately, the solution chosen wasn't able to, one, transform their business in the way they were looking to achieve and move the needle, and two, they weren't equipped to handle the organizational change and all those transformation points that we spoke about earlier. They weren't equipped to take that on. So what it led to was a lot of processes that were maybe incorrectly implemented in the technology system, causing a lot of out of the system workarounds, and in some cases entire processes that were left without a home in the new application.
Yes. Yeah, and I think Arthur is back with us too. Arthur, why don't you jump in on this concept of the Kahua solution, and how did this get you guys around the corner and across the goal line?
Hey, Arthur and Craig, I'm going to jump in real quick.
Please,
and just
yes.
ask Steve a clarifying question.
Sure,
Steve,
sure.
KPMG was not part of that initial.
No, we were not.
You just said the words vendor led. So that means the software vendor, to my point earlier, who knew nothing about MTO other than they requested some software. They didn't have that kind of knowledge as to where we start and where we need to go that KPMG would have had with an existing relationship. So I think that was a critical point that you pointed
Yes.
out, a vendor-led effort, not a consultant-led effort.
Yeah, it was probably two compounded problems. It was probably the wrong solution for them and the wrong implementation team. So unfortunately, it's one of those what could go wrong did go wrong situations.
Yeah. Well, forgive me for jumping in. I just thought that was a critical point.
Quite all right, Nick. Thank you. Okay, Arthur, no thunder was stolen, my friend. So take it from here. Yeah.
Could you just repeat the question?
Sure. It was just we're literally looking at the Kahua solution. What made it unique? What made it how did it help us get around the corner?
So the history of when Kahua was presented to MTO actually dates back to maybe 2 years before the actual RFP went out. So very early on, well, let me start by saying this. There is a tool for every job, right? And the right tools if you're going to do the job correctly. And so For MTO, that tool had to be both flexible, feature-rich, meet stringent security and accessibility requirements, which is part of the law in the province of Ontario, have the ability to add new features and evolve as the process and the organization evolves. And if one of those elements was missing, I don't think that we would be as successful as we were. So, you know, what was the winning formula? I think of what we're able to deliver within the platform, the core features, the mass amount of work that Kahua has done to add additional features that will later leverage as part of the business processes that were deployed at MTO, and not to put our contribution on the same level, because we're just working through the actual solution, but understanding of the client and ability to feed the features that we're asking Kahua to add, that those are getting deployed at the right time to then be deployed the capability. At the very end, we can go live on the date that we've committed to go live, which was one of the most critical factors for them. It was actually the whole implementation was planned backwards from the go live date. And if it didn't meet that date, they've actually said, don't worry about it. It's not required. It's a combination of all of these factors, really.
Yeah, fabulous. So Nick, jumping back in with you, I know that Kahua works with construction owners and their teams across many verticals, right? I mean, I think as I've learned, not just transportation. So are some of these challenges common to digital transformation regardless of the kind of owner type of construction or not? Are there similarities or there's just a lot of differences? Hey, Nick, no volume. Can't hear you.
You can hear me now?
Yes, no lip reading, I promise. Go ahead.
There are certainly some commonalities between different types or different verticals of construction, different industry groups. It doesn't mean that everybody has every one of these problems, but there's some things that doesn't matter if you're building schools or healthcare facilities or pharmas or oil and gas or utilities or transportation entities. There are some things that are in common. A project's a project. And some of those things, both Steve and Arthur have made reference to, that solutions need to be not just flexible, but they need to be agile because things change. You know, MTO does planning for 10 years out, for sometimes 20 years out, and they fund projects for at least 5 years out. So how much can change by the time we decide to do a project between 4 years from now when we're finishing up construction? So the solutions that we offer, us vendors like Kahua, need to be very agile. And I'll make a distinction in that, you know, think about the greatest, biggest data companies in the world and their database products. And you can probably take those solutions and do anything you can imagine with them. But if you ask for something that it doesn't do today, while it will be able to do it, it might take a year or two to have that change made into their software, into their data structure. It might take $1 million or $2 million to get that change. Firms like Arthur's have created solutions independent of anything that Kahua had to offer, but on our platform, you know, for specific business processes that don't come in your normal vendor solution. Arthur's team has extended applications that were built by Kahua. Again, go back to your phone analogy. Google doesn't know much about running hotels or airlines, so they let hotel and airline people write those applications on a platform. So I think that's one thing that's common, that all different construction owner types have the need occasionally, at least, for that kind of agility in their tools. Things change on a dime. Regulations change. A company might move into a new territory where regulations are different already. So you need to be able to be both not just flexible, but agile. So we think that's a common thing. And then there's another thing that's very germane to this conversation. Our owners keep telling us that they need more interoperability. Arthur said it's not just one kind of tool set that we wind up with in the digital twin and this idea of transformation. That means that I'm going to have silos of data. So our tools need to be able to talk to each other. That's something that our industry is still struggling with. Interoperability is huge for an owner that collects a lot of data. So we think that's an important thing. In fact, Kahua, you'll hear more about this in the weeks and months to come, but Kahua has built something we call an asset data overlay that allows all the information about the owner's assets. And MTO would think of an asset as a road or a bridge, but they might also think of it as a culvert or a piece of equipment or something in one of their office buildings. So we're able to collect important data, and important based on what the owner says is important. We're able to collect that in a way during design, procurement, construction, commissioning. We are able to do that in a way that can then flow into the owner's tools that they use to maintain and operate those assets. And then have that overlay inform their other tools. So perhaps they have a facility management tool or an asset management tool. We push data directly into that. This overlay, though, could also inform their BIM model. It could inform their GIS system. So we're doing our part to make interoperability, a great value add to what we bring to the table. So those would be the things that flexible and agile and interoperability, I think are common to every owner's desire for data.
Yeah, Nick, fabulous. So Steve, I've been thinking, you gave us some best practices for digital transformation, and I almost hate to ask this question, but are there any worst practices that are like on the other side of your list that you would advise, absolutely do not do?
Yeah, that's, we don't think about that so often, but there's mistakes that are pretty common across, digital transformations. And I think they touch on a lot of things that, Arthur and Nick have already said today as well, in terms of, being too rigid, not being agile enough, not fixating on your initial requirements, and not taking a look at the entire transformation as a whole, and figuring out where your organization wants to go and setting up a realistic plan. So if you're not going to set up a realistic plan to get there, you're going to fail right out the gate. If you haven't selected the right solution, you're going to run into probably insurmountable problems. And from the KPMG perspective, we are a technology agnostic organization. We don't go around and recommend Kahua to all of our clients, but over the last couple of years, we're recommending to them more and more of our clients because of these transformational aspects, and in the support they provide and the partnership that we have with them. They've shown that the platform is capable and the organization is able, and we're able to set up these transformations on the right path and be very successful, such as at Ontario Ministry of Transportation. So quick recap: if you want to avoid some uncomfortable conversations with your own stakeholders and within your own organization, you definitely want to make sure that you select the right solution, select the right team, and never underestimate the massive amounts of organizational change management that's required to pull off a successful transformation. Because we still, we can go into clients and tell them right from the start that you've missed some, change management issues, and we've been told, no, these aren't going to be problems, and then 6 months down the road they are massive problems. So being aware of those items are key, and hopefully it can be avoided.
Yeah, Steve, too, you say, I hear you kind of talking about the trustworthiness, right? The ability to really talk about these things in a way that are meaningful. So Arthur, for you, same question. Worst practices that we need to absolutely avoid.
Yeah, I think I share Steve's sentiment. For me, what would be the greatest benefit, and how you could set up yourself and the project for success is organizations and people involved have to be very realistic in terms of what is achievable for the their organization and for their project. And that's the procurement, like how everything's going to know that this is it. You put OCM, report building, integration, migration on yourself as an organization. They have IT departments. Sure. The question is, when have you ever done that? Right? When have you ever done it successfully? When have you ever done it working with other stakeholders under a timeline that is so aggressive? So pick less, make sure everybody's comfortable with what you're doing, make sure that it's a positive, achievable end result. And I'd rather have 2 smaller size projects, both of them successful, than have one massive one that tries to boil the ocean, and then things happen, whether it's a people or it's a technology or it's any other aspect of interaction between various stakeholders. Events will occur that are outside of your control, and this is the simplest way to guarantee everybody's success. Also, to that point is organizations, when you bring in a firm like KPMG or when you bring us in, don't try to take on things and make your job harder, because we're looking to you to provide to us everything that we're going to execute. And then you're going to go out and say, we'll also do this, this, and this. You have to be ready to support it. And if not, offloading that responsibility on somebody like KPMG, on somebody like Superset, makes it our problem. So we're here to serve. Let us serve you. Because if not, your inability or ability to deliver part or whole of the requirements is going to impact how we'll all end up at the finish line. So, so don't try to boil the ocean. I guess that's the point here, and be realistic. And the last one that's very important is through the design processes, and as we talk to the owners, they may be doing it one way or the other. They may have inherited some terminology from a previous solution that subjugated their process to how the system operates, because the system wasn't flexible. Terms that are used for various business processes. I have a hierarchy that we kick off right at the very beginning. It's that we have to meet that. If we're not meeting that, that means you're in breach of the contract and issues are going to come. So that's the very top. And then you want to go down from that. So contractual organization requirements, then you level of subject matter expertise. So we will provide that feedback to the clients, and it's on them to validate whether that's something that they want to take in and execute or not. They say it. We're trying to prevent the client from walking themselves into a corner.
Yeah.
Moving forward and up the pyramid, and the options just get narrower and narrower. And what we're trying to do is prevent you from getting to the very top where you can't turn left or right because you've made too many decisions that limit you. Yeah.
I'm going to use that. That's good stuff. So, Nick, before we get over into maybe some Q&A, you talked about the interoperability, which I love that, right, from a data perspective. So there's this phrase, I use it a lot, data is the new oil, right, by Clive Humby, the mathematician, in 2006. So what do you hear from owners about what data they need? Because I think the way you talked about the need to conflate this data and interoperate, it just seems critical.
All right, Craig, first I'm going to tell you what I hear about Clive Humby, and that I love that expression. I'll tell you why I love it too. Yeah. Because it made sense to me when I first heard it. Okay, yes. Oil is valuable, data is valuable. That's what I understood that to mean. But all anyone ever told me was the first part of that. And it's really actually a little bit out of context, because what Humby was saying was that data is like oil. It can be valuable, but if you don't refine it, all you have is a big mess. If all you've got is data spewing out of your well and you don't refine it, you've just created a terrible mess. And that's of no value to anyone. It's only valuable if you refine it. And then when I learned that part, it's kind of like the rest of the story,
Yes.
Paul Harvey. I felt like I felt like a light bulb had gone off. Okay, that makes real sense. One's a cute little analogy, but that really makes sense. And that's what we hear from our owners. And what I was talking about before, interoperability and Kahua's ability to pass on this data to do effectively an instant and continual handover of data to all the other management tools, all the other common data environments, if you will. They're not very common if we have several, but our ability to do that is what owners tell us they want. The opposite of that is the way that the industry has worked for years, and that we focus on project, get it done, finish it. And part of that effort is to collect asset data along the way, cut sheets, plans, specs, drawings, as-built, all these things that we then at the end of a project, along with the keys to the building, we hand the owner a thumb drive with, 50,000 PDFs and 500 spreadsheets. Well, that's data, but it's not at all refined. And owners in the US and in the UK and in Europe then pay firms to recreate, the term that we hear is retrieve, recreate, and collate that same data they've already paid for. So what we believe we need to be able to do, and that we believe the industry needs to start doing, we're trying to do our part to provide this continuous flow of valuable data into the other systems that allow it to be refined. I hope that makes sense.
It did. And actually, I love that. And I love the fact that the quote sort of becomes more meaningful when you talk about the refinement process. Something we don't always talk about or admit to ourselves is data can be awfully messy, right? And that refining process is where the value comes in. So
today,
listen,
in the issue of asset, today as we do asset data handover, we create a mess. It is an unvaluable mess. Kahua's developed something that eliminates that. And I'm in the UK this week. We talk to owners in the US, and we hear that cost of retrieving, recreating, collating that data is 1% to 4%. We presented that here in the UK this week, and our clients tell us that they actually have a line item cost that they budget 5% to 6%, and that's before they retrieve BIM information. So it's a 5% to 8% cost here in the UK. Of the entire value of the project, spend 8% more just to get the data that you already paid someone to create.
Wow. Yeah, that's an incredible metric, Nick. So listen, with just a few minutes left, I know we're getting kind of close to the end. I want to kind of look at maybe asking you a question that's been top of mind for me. So within the next 48 hours, Government Technology is going to provide all attendees with a link to the recording. So for your reference. So I want to kind of, just with a few minutes left, I want to pose this question to each of you and let you talk about it just for a brief minute. What about this project? Because it sounds amazing, the amount of transformation and the success. What are you most proud of? What are you most proud of? And I'd like to sort of hear that as we close out for today. So Steve, I'll start with you. What are you most proud of?
I'm definitely proud of what we were able to accomplish on such a short timeline. 13 months for this size of transformation and scope is a sprint the whole way. We hit every milestone along the way. We hit the MVP after 9 months. We hit the go live after 13 months. It wasn't always smooth. There was some challenges and some long nights, but we got it done. And that's a testament to the team we had, to Arthur and his team, as well as Kahua and them. And KPMG, of course. I mean,
of course.
We were there.
Yeah. So Arthur, tell me, what are you most proud of with this project? All right, Nick, you might have to back clean up for everybody here, my friend.
Okay, I can do that.
Yes.
Well, I'll say this. I think that Steve and Arthur are probably a little humble. One of the things that I'm very proud of is that the Kahua team and these two guys in their direction created new applications that did not exist before We brought some new technology to the market that did not exist before because MTO needed it. It was something that we hadn't thought of before. MTO had a requirement. We created new technology for that. But the real thing that I'm most proud of is the way that this team has been put together. It just demonstrates that the ecosystem we have with global consultants like KPMG and with boutique firms like Arthur's, and there were others involved in this project as well. They did a tremendous job, and I'll give Steve lots of the credit. Did a tremendous job quarterbacking a complex implementation. So just super proud that we can put a team together like this and that Kahua can be part of it.
Absolutely. Well, Arthur, the last word is with you, my friend. What are you most proud of here?
Well, both Steve and Nicholas already mentioned the team. I also think that in this particular case, this came down to the team and Kahua as our technology partner. Without some of the stuff that they've done to get the platform to give us the capabilities to deliver for the client, we would not be where we are, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. So I think what I'm proud of is the professionalism and friendship and the relationships that we've built. I'll use that one. I think that is what's going to continue driving the success that we've been experiencing so far. It's going to continue driving us into the future.
Fabulous. And let me just say, for the record, I agree totally, right? Everything is typically about a relationship, right? And that's what matters in the end. In closing, I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining the event today. And I mean, wow, big thank you to Steve, Arthur, and Nick. What a fabulous conversation. And many thanks to Kahua for making it possible to have this really important webcast today.